his political career as a member of the Georgian Parliament from 1995 until 2000. In 2000, he became Vice President of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe and Minister of Justice in Georgia. In this position, he initiated reforms of the corrupt criminal justice system. In October 2002, he founded the opposition party United National Movement and became its chairman. In the parliamentary elections, his party reached 2004 around 66% and therefore had the legislative majority. Mixheil Saakashvili became known as a pro-Western and pro-democratic politician, in particular in these years, and in January 2005 he was elected as President of Georgia. In January 2008 he was re-elected for a second legislative period. He's a laureate of the prize of Carl Montana Forum for Democracy and World Integration in Eastern Europe, as well as of the prize of the American Bar Association for Enforcement of Law and Order. In 2005, he had been recommended for the Nobel Prize for Peace by Hillary Clinton and John McCain. Dear Mr. President, it's an honor to have you here tonight. You have the floor.
Georgia is a very special case. To understand why it's a special case, I never fully realized until very recently. I had recently a speech to the UN where I spoke about what would happen to post-Soviet space. And it got 1 million clicks on YouTube from post-Soviet countries, which really underscores what Georgia had done for the last several years. What Georgia had done for, I think, overall is that we tried to change Georgia. We never had big ambitions. I'm not about really big world ambitions. We're a small country trying to survive existentially in a very complicated international environment. But by trying to change Georgia, we actually changed the whole post-Soviet world. On the one hand, we had many precedents to create. We not only created precedents I spoke about of turning unsuccessful failed country into a successful one, but we created first ever precedent of peaceful transfer of power in this region. Really peaceful one because there was on-job training for new ministers for 1 month given by the old ministers. We created first ever precedent of cohabitation between president and another government. And by the way, it was still presidential republic, and I voluntarily transferred all the powers to the government because I thought that they had to assume responsibility based on results of elections. And we, for the first time, created a precedent that former government party did not disappear, despite the fact that 25,000 people were interrogated, and like here is Mayor of Tbilisi, who starts every working week by going to court, and his city council was summoned every day. Under their rules, they had meetings every Thursday, and every Thursday they were summoned, all of them, for investigation, so that they couldn't hold meeting until the moment that majority collapsed, and then suddenly all the investigators lost interest in them. Despite all these facts, we just had elections for president where very low turnout. National Movement was still second party with 22%, as I said, despite the fact that there were mass-scale interrogation. So this is a good precedent. Good precedent is all over Soviet world. And these precedents need to be maintained and spread, because this is another part of our soft power.
Thank you for taking Georgia from an almost failed state to a frontrunner in transformation. But my question goes to this geopolitical game or geostrategic game that you referred to. So what is your advice to the West vis-a-vis Russia and vis-a-vis the nations in between? Can you sketch a grand strategy of how to deal with this Russia, which is obviously in difficulties, but it believes that it can play around and get out of the West what it wants to get out of the West? I mean, so how do we react to this, according to you?
Misha, we are very proud that UNM is part of the EPP family for years now already. I mean, you look into the election results, Actually, the worrisome part is the low turnout, which means that the people don't think they can put their trust in political solutions for the country. And given the very difficult circumstances, the result was not too bad, actually. And that also gives hope that opposition has a chance in Georgia. But when you look into, I'm interested in what you expect, what your expectations are for the next years, because economic growth has dropped. What do you expect of the investors' climate? And when people don't see results of this new government, what could that mean? So I'm very interested to learn.
You've obviously put Georgia on the map and moved it towards a liberal and open society in some ways. My question is something completely different. It's rather brutal. You mentioned Mr. Putin recently. My question is very brutal. Is the problem with Russia that we had and you have, is it Mr. Putin or is it Russia?
Speaking about the future, the Misha generation, two questions to your advice perhaps. A young boy 2 years ago, Edward Saakashvili, won a prize because he was the quickest typist on the iPad. In 2 decades, this gentleman, an adult now, will be able maybe to run for president according to the Constitution. Would you recommend him to do that?